Hey, Brad, how was Madison, Wisconsin?
Well, I can tell you the runway was pretty nice because that's about all I saw. Actually, I think I have been... Okay, let me back up. God, there are so many things we could talk about here. Did you travel a lot in your days in the tech press?
Fair amount, yeah. I usually had like the low tier status on whichever airline I flew on most.
Okay, yeah,
but I didn't have I wasn't a John Drake, let's say.
Sure, I hit that 1 year on United, or maybe 2 years. Like the you can just go in the nice lounge whenever you want and get the free food and stuff.
Yeah, I had that on Virgin at Tested, and it made the traveling that we did for Tested totally doable.
Yes, it was fantastic. Now, did you travel enough to forget a lot of the places you traveled to?
No, I always remember everything.
Okay, oh, of course. So I had the experience when I was having a lot of experiences when we landed in Madison, but one of them was, I think I went to Madison once in 2006 or something.
Isn't that where Raven is?
So that would probably be why.
They're in Wisconsin someplace, I think.
Raven, I'm pretty sure, is in Madison and was probably not part of Activision at that time.
Well, and that would have been when they were working on that Russian time travel game, right?
Oh, Singularity?
No, that would have been a Giant Bomb, I guess.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. That might have been a Maximum PC game for me.
Was Human Head also in Madison?
Human Head, I thought was Texas, but that's just because they'd been around since the early days of first person shooters.
Oh, they were in Madison. Okay, I think that's why I went to Madison.
Oh, there you go.
I think I went to Human Head for some reason at one point. Maybe, I don't know.
I was going to ask you what the runway was like in Madison. You talking asphalt? You got concrete up there? Did you notice?
Couldn't really even see out of the window.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I can tell you the plane was very hot because we sat there for 2 hours without the air conditioning running.
Ugh.
The infant a couple rows up was not very happy about it.
Are you an aisle guy or a window guy?
I would aisle, definitely.
Yeah.
I love being able to get up without inconveniencing people.
I like being able to get up. I also like the ability to put my leg out in the aisle.
Yes, that came in very handy. Also, this was a 48 seat. I counted. It was 12 rows, 2 by 2.
Is that like a bombardier, an embracer group bombardier or something?
Probably. I didn't look at what kind of plane it was, but it was definitely a regional commuter type. So not a big plane, which might explain why we were so far back in line to go back to Chicago after they started letting people go back to Chicago.
Okay, so we should back up because I feel like if people don't follow you on Twitter and happen to be online at 6 o'clock Pacific time on Tuesday, they have no idea what we're talking about.
Yes, I tried to fly back from the East Coast to San Francisco Monday late. I left. My initial flight left at 5:40 p.m. We were supposed to go through O'Hare, connect to San Francisco, 30 minutes.
That puts you back home at 9 o'clock at night,
about
our time?
10-15 landing, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's my preferred east to west.
If I had it to do over, I think I'm going to start flying out earlier. These end of day flights. It turns out if something goes wrong with your chain of flights, there's not a lot more flights after that you might be able to get onto.
Well, look, you are riding the razor's edge on that kind of a travel plan.
Anyway, they told us as we were leaving that there's some thunderstorms they weren't calling for. We're going to have to zig and zag a little bit. And then by the time we're approaching O'Hare, they're they have shut down all flights in and out of O'Hare. Also, they appear to be evacuating their traffic control towers.
Yeah. About that time, I started getting tweets from friends who live in Chicago that were like, wow, the tornado sirens are on again. I didn't think it was a practice day. Oh, it's not a practice day.
Yeah, it was. Apparently, it was just pandemonium in the airport. They were making people move away from the windows inside the airport and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you think about places you want to be in a tornado, like a giant airport with 30-foot high plate glass windows is probably not high on that list.
That's not great at all.
No.
Anyway, obviously they put us into a holding pattern, and then the captain was like, we're not sure. If we have to circle for much longer, we're going to run out of fuel, so we may have to just divert. But also the part that really stopped me in my tracks was he's like, by the way, every other incoming flight is in the same boat we are. You might see a few of them outside the window.
Oh boy.
In a very cheerful tone. Yeah. And I was I don't think I want to see other planes.
You just see the lights, right?
I don't know a ton about air traffic control practices, but once everybody's put into a holding pattern, I don't know if you saw the map that I tweeted out, but there appeared to be dozens of airplanes circling around O'Hare.
There were a lot of airplanes.
And I don't know how fine-grained the direction is from the ground. I don't know how you avoid a mid-air collision in that case.
Oh, okay. So there's a couple of basic rules. One is that if you're going in opposite directions in the same air lane, it's 1,000-foot difference.
Okay.
Always. So like you'll be at 36,000 feet going east and they'll be at 34,000 feet going west. Okay. In the holding patterns, I have no idea how that stuff works.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to know, you could sign up to be an air traffic controller for the X-Plane people.
Whoa.
And I'm sure you could take a whole like online course and learn how to be an ATC person.
Oh, I've heard that's the whole like role playing thing with people doing flight simulation stuff, right?
Oh yeah, we did a tested video early on, like 2012 probably, where we went to this guy's house out in the like the East Bay, who had put a 707 cockpit or 727 cockpit in his garage. Like he cut out part of the roof.
Wow.
The lintel above the garage door so that the nose of the airplane would stick out, basically.
That's commitment.
So he could get it in. It was awesome. He had huge projectors in front of the windows, and like I got to sit in the cockpit of the airplane and pull the yoke and had force. Like it was rad. Switches everywhere. Everything. So anyway, you could do that. I know a guy is what I'm saying. If you want to get into the ATC game.
I don't know, man. I think my recent exposure to the mechanics of air travel might be enough for 1 year.
So what? Okay, so you landed in Madison. Did you eventually get to O'Hare, or did they just reroute you out of Madison?
I had a super tight connection to begin with that I was already sweating. First of all, I don't think I'll ever do this again. My official connection, regardless of any delays and diversions and stuff, was 42 minutes in O'Hare.
And you're going from the regional terminal to one of the big plane terminals?
Yes.
Man, that's a tight one.
That's 42 minutes from little plane touching down to big plane taking off.
Yeah, that means you have 32 minutes from the time the plane gets to the gate, theoretically.
Yes. So I was already really sweating that one. And then this happened and I was like, oh, now everybody's in the same boat. It'll be fine. But then
it wasn't fine.
Then they sent us to they sent us to Milwaukee, and then halfway to Milwaukee, they were like, well, Milwaukee's full. Now we're going to Madison. And then we stayed. We were stuck in Madison for so long that my flight to San Francisco, I thought I was like, surely everything's so backed up, I'll get back to Chicago before it leaves. But nope.
Well, no, they have to get the outgoing flights out so they have a place to put the incoming flights.
Yeah. So that did not happen.
Oof. So where'd you spend the night?
At the gate in O'Hare.
Oh, boy.
Did not sleep. Just sat at the gate, bleary eyed.
Do you have do you play games or anything? Or you just sitting there?
They did have decent Wi-Fi.
Okay.
I just got on the internet, and you may have heard of it. I read a book off and on. It was, ugh.
That's a bad. Was there food open at least?
No. I found the first vending machine for drinks I found would not take my credit card, and I had no cash. And like if I had found an ATM, that's nothing but 20s. Like I was in dire straits, and then I found another one that worked.
There you go.
Anyway, yes. So,
well, that sounds fun.
I gotta give it up for United. There was one aspect of this that actually really impressed me.
Okay.
So we finally got back to O'Hare, and of course all the flights were gone. And I was like, oh God, I've got to go find customer service. I kid you not. I bet there were close to 1,000 people in that line in front of me. Like it was just the line was like halfway down the terminal. I waited in that line for about 30 minutes. I talked about this on the Next Lander podcast. I apologize to anybody who's heard all this. In this like 1,000-person line, the guy in front of me is not wearing a mask and won't stop coughing. I'm like, I'm just like, it's like midnight. I'm just like, I want to die right now. It turns out they do not call attention to this. Like they should have had some signs up in the terminal or something there. They had a bunch of signs up with a QR code on it. And it was like, scan this QR code with your phone and you'll be directed to an agent you can talk to or something. Mm-hmm. And I heard all these people in line just talking shit about the QR code, saying like, yeah, I tried it. It's bullshit. It did nothing. Like it just went nowhere, blah, blah, blah. Like after 30 minutes in this line, I'm like, man, fuck this. I've got to find something else. So I just started Googling United rebook missed flight. Turns out if you just open the United app and put in your confirmation code for the flight you just missed, it'll walk you through this whole automated process in the app of like, hey, we're sorry you missed your flight. Here are other flight options from that airport and other airports nearby if you want to look through them. And it just straight up listed every flight out. Like I was able to say like, how about San Jose Airport instead of San Francisco? Like I was just able to like tick a bunch of extra options for like a broader search. And then the next thing I knew, it was like, here's all these flights. And I just like tapped one and it booked me on like the first available flight the next morning.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I'm going to go. I got out of that 1,000-person line and just went and sat down. Like why they don't tell people, like why I had to Google search that to find out that was such an easy option. I have no idea.
Well, I was going to say Gina taught me this years ago because she in a past life, she was a travel agent, and she was like, look, when something goes bad at an airport and everybody at the airport is trying to rebook, the thing you don't want to do is wait in the line with all the other people that are at that airport.
Yes.
Just go call the number and talk to the person on the phone. And they might still be really backed up, but they won't be as backed up as the 1,000-person line.
Totally.
Or also there's automated kiosks at most airports now too. So if you're not doing anything complicated, you just go up and hit the button, put your thing in, boom, 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 and you're done in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I think that's why I Googled, was to find somebody to call on the phone. That was my idea. Yeah. But then I just found that automated app process and I was just like, that took 5 minutes. Like
The apps for American and United, which are the two airlines I've flown most recently in the before times, were both pretty robust.
Yeah. It's like one of those rare cases where they're trying to save money by taking humans out of the equation, but it actually it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like 99% of the time, if you're not a chucklehead, you probably don't need a person to help you with that stuff.
Yeah.
It works itself out.
Yeah. It was, hey, it could have been better, but it could have been worse.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
Hey, Brad.
Hi.
Wes and Norm were right.
That's the first thing you wrote in this Google Doc, and I laughed.
I mean, look, it's not the first thing I wrote in the Google Doc. It's the second thing I wrote in the Google Doc.
Okay. Well, it's now at the top of the Google Doc.
Okay.
Just don't let them hear you said. They'll be mad with power.
So my Steam Deck came Thursday a week ago.
Okay.
And it's real good.
This is the Steam Deck you bought like a customer.
530. Well, okay, here I sold some PUBG items on the Steam marketplace.
Serious?
Look, I played a lot of PUBG.
Wait,
Brad.
can you? I guess I should have known that you could just buy a Steam Deck with Steam credit, but I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah, so I sold like, I don't know, $80 worth of skins to get a little discount on the Deckaroni there.
Are these skins that you paid money for, or that just like dropped somehow?
These are skins that were mostly early drops that I never ever used, but are rare because they existed when not many people played the game and they're not available anymore.
I see.
Some of them are codes that came for like watching events and stuff like that. So nothing good, nothing, no hot dog, no corn cob skin man or anything like that.
Wait, have they gone down that road?
No, the game would be much better. It turns out after playing Fortnite for a while, the game with the hot dog skins, way more fun than the game with all the sweaty camouflage, man.
I can see how that might be the case.
So I got a little bit of a discount. I had pre-ordered the 256 megabyte SSD one, gigabyte SSD one, just because at the time we had to do the pre-orders, we didn't know if the flash cards were going to be fast enough, if the compact flash cards or what are they, SD cards, micro SD cards were going to be fast enough.
Yes.
So I hedged.
Sorry, I'm pulling up a list of the models. So, okay, 256 is the middle model. Yeah,
so there's the low end, which is no SSD. It comes with like 256 gigs of MMC flash card, I think.
64
gigs. Yeah. But you can pop that out, and like a 512 gig SSD card or SD card is like $60 now for an appropriate one. And then there's a 512 gig SSD one, which seemed like a goofy one to choose from where I sit, since you can open it up and put your own SSD in.
Yeah.
It's a weird length, the SSD. So there's a limited number of models that are on the market that'll actually fit in there, but like you can upgrade it to a terabyte or whatever relatively easily.
The only thing that gives me pause about that top tier model is that it has anti-glare coating on the glass that the other models does not. Like otherwise, I think it's identical, but that kind of bums me out.
I haven't found an issue. My bet is that there will be screen protectors that you can buy that will have the anti-glare coating in like a matter of weeks or months, if not sooner.
You're probably right. So when did I'm curious about what the mechanics are of getting one of these things still right now. Like when did you put the order in, and like now it's relative to now that it's shown up?
Let's see. My pre-order went in on June something of last year, I think.
Wow. No, that can't be right. Did they really announce this thing a year ago?
Hold on, I'll pull it up in an email, but I think it was a year ago.
Okay. I think I'm going to start having an existential crisis if it turns out that thing has been,
I know,
released in February. When was it announced?
I think it was last June. I have the Unix timecode for it.
I don't see.
So there's a Steam Deck calculator.
July 15th. Oh my God, it has been almost a year.
Yeah, I did it on July 21st, I think, or July 19th.
Oh, wow. So you were literally in the first wave of orders and you're just now getting it a year later.
Well, no, I wasn't in the first wave. I was in the first wave was all Q1 and I was in the Q2 window.
I guess what I mean is you were in that initial window of people scrambling at announcement to get one.
So my Unix timestamp of the exact time of the order.
Why do you have that?
Was Friday, July 16th at 8:03 p.m. and 29 seconds.
Why do you have
so
that?
So there's this thing called the expected order date calculator that takes you post to the time that you did your order and when you got the email to receive it to buy it, and you put in the model number that you pre-ordered, your region, and whatever their current estimate is, and then it's modeling out the results to see when people who are further down the line will get their order email. Because like Valve doesn't give specific dates. They're just like, you're going to be able to order yours sometime in Q2 or you're going to order yours sometime in Q3. So I had put it into the order calculator like a week before and it saves it in a cookie. So I know the reservation time, even though it's no longer listed in Steam.
That's some digital detective work.
It is. It's yeah. So I ordered it. You get an email on Monday. And it's like, hey, if you want this, you can buy it now. Yeah, you had to put $5 down when you did the initial order. You get an email on Monday. It's like, hey, you have 2 days to pay. Be ready. And then they shipped it. It came slow from Wisconsin someplace, I think, and it took a week to get here. But when it finally got here, everything was fine. I have seen people. There's a meme on the Steam Deck Reddit right now about the FedEx delivery people, since the boxes are labeled Steam Deck, like opening them up and just delivering empty boxes.
Yes. I've seen some people on my Twitter feeds say they got an empty box and I couldn't tell if they were just funning around or not.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's a meme or if it's real or not. My box was full. I was very excited. I like my FedEx delivery person quite a bit.
Yeah.
They did do a not delivered thing one day, which was kind of exciting because it was like, hey, we tried to deliver it and there was nobody here. You're like, huh, that's weird because I don't ever leave the house and I was absolutely here exactly at the time they said it wasn't delivered. Anyway, I think that's just because the FedEx people are given too many things to deliver in one day.
This is entirely possible.
And my bet is that their little application doesn't have a button that says, yo, you put too much shit on the truck today. But yeah, so I've spent about a week and a half with it at this point and it's real good. Like it has exceeded my expectations in almost every way.
Now let's just back up here. I think we talked about this with the Switch, but you were in a state of television contention, correct? In your house?
Yeah, and like my office computer is always available, but also I spend a lot of time in here every day, and there's a fair amount of time that I don't want to sit in the office to play a computer game.
Like you might want to be on a couch and near your family, but you also might want to be doing something that they don't want to do on the TV, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I just ask that because like in my case, like we've talked about this, like I don't love handheld gaming when a TV is an option, but like that's kind of the point for you, right? Is that TV is not always an option.
Well, and also I'm able to play games on this that I probably wouldn't play on a TV in the best of cases.
Interesting. Like what?
Like Vampire Survivors, probably not something I would play on the TV.
Sure. Yes. Even when you're sitting in a computer, that's like the quintessential second monitor game, right? It's not something that you need to see clearly or like need it to be full screen or whatever. It's just a time wasting idle kind of thing, right? Or not idle. That's I don't mean that, but you know what I mean? It's not a thing you like turn the lights off and like bear down on. It's not like some immersive story based.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that if there's something's on the TV that I want to listen to, but don't necessarily care to watch, I will play some Vampire Survivors.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really, so the thing, okay, first off, screen's really good. The shiny screen looks great. I haven't felt any concern about the anti-glareness of this. I'd completely forgotten that was a thing until you mentioned it a minute ago.
Sorry.
The comfort over, it's a lower resolution screen than it's like basically Switch resolution screen. It's like 1280 by 800. The comfort over long sessions is quite good, way better than the Switch by default, because it's got grippies on the back. So there's like something to hold on to, and you're not just gripping it with your fingertips in a way that requires you to hold on too tight. So it can kind of rest. You can kind of rest it in the crotch of your hands, or you can kind of hold it by the side.
Sorry, I didn't realize hands had crotches, but
yeah, like the meaty part of your palm is what I'm talking about.
Sure, the saddle.
Yeah, it's the same place you used to tell if the piece of chicken's cooked, right?
Right.
People loved that, by the way.
Did they?
Yeah, look. The thermometer people are correct in that if you don't know how to tell when a piece of chicken is done, using the thermometer will get you good results 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But the meaty part of the palm trick, once you understand what you're feeling, the meaty part of the palm trick is really good for not having to stick it.
We didn't fully cover this. How do you modulate the thickness of the part of the hand? Like, is it limp versus?
You don't.
No, I know, but like, what are the 2 points of comparison? It's like thumb limp versus like thumb out.
It's like the part with the muscle down here.
Oh yeah, I get the part
versus like this part up here.
Oh, it's different parts of the hand.
Like if it bounces, if it pushes in, okay, then it's not done.
Yeah, I think the way I had learned it is like if you let your thumb go like slack, it's soft, and if you flex it out, then it's. I think that's the way I was.
Interesting.
That
I don't know
that trick.
Maybe this method it does suck, and you should just use the thermometer. You get a thermopop for like $20 from the Thermapen people.
You know what doesn't lie? Numbers.
I haven't played a ton of mouse and keyboard games, but for gamepad games, the controls are fantastic. Like the weird D-pad positioning I was worried about, but you get used to it very quickly.
Now, do you agree with Wes and Norm that those touchpads are garbage?
I think that the software for the touchpads has probably improved pretty dramatically since we talked to them.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that we talked about with them didn't seem to be an issue on final shipping hardware or the current software. Like, and I'm getting 2 updates a week for it. It seems like.
Wow, even now.
Yeah, even now. And the Proton stuff updates it seems like a lot in the background. Like so some of the updates you don't even know about. Some of them it's like, hey, do you want to run an update on your system? But so the trackball, the pad kind of emulates a mouse sometimes, and it's almost like a trackball where it has some momentum, and the rumble indicates that underneath it. It actually feels quite good. The other place I use the trackpads a lot are when you're using the keyboard. So I don't know if you ever used Valve's weird dual stick keyboard mode where you like pull the trigger to select a letter, but you can use the stick on like half the keyboard for your left stick and the right side of the keyboard for the right stick, and
yes,
kind of swing the cursor around.
I think I've tried it a couple times and then kind of backed away slowly.
So it actually works better than any other time I've tried it with the pads.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it feels like I went and dug my Steam controller out of the bin to see the controller bin, not the trash bin, English friends.
Yes.
To see like because it felt like the resolution of these pads was better than the ones that I had used in the past.
Just to touch on the system update stuff again, I assume there is some tier of update that requires you to full on like iPhone style, like, hey, we need to reboot this device for 15 minutes.
I would assume so, but I haven't seen like, I guess when I set it up initially, it was like, hey, we're going to download some software and update. And then it did that, but I don't think it did a full reboot. I think it just restarted the shell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably only if they're updating the underlying Linux distro.
If they're kernel updates or something like that, yeah.
Right, like if they're just updating like Proton libraries, that's probably pretty seamless.
It seems like it updates the Proton libraries even on demand. Like if you download a game because the different games will have compatibility with different versions of Proton.
Sure.
And it like you don't ever have to think about that. It just kind of works unless you choose to engage with it at a different level, in which case it won't. And like but for the most part, I haven't had to select a Proton library manually at all.
Interesting. I'm really curious, and like, I mean, we would really have to ask them this. Maybe we'll get the chance to talk to them at some point.
I would love to talk to them. Valve, if you're listening.
I have all kinds of questions. I really wonder if they have created an ongoing support burden for themselves of like constantly having to massage compatibility on a per game basis, like from now until eternity.
I mean, I think they have probably, but you know what? They take a pretty substantial cut from game developers. Fair. So maybe this is part of the cost.
They probably can justify the labor they put into that.
Yeah, realistically, the cost of the bandwidth and the storage that they're using to distribute games has gone down dramatically over the last 20 years. And so if they're adding burden in other places, that seems fine to me.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean though is that it is a point of failure. Like, this thing is super popular, and I doubt, I'm not suggesting they're going to drop support for the Steam Deck anytime soon, but like Valve's track record for supporting devices is up and down. It is possible one day that suddenly, like, if they stop supporting new games, like there could be an issue there. I mean, likely not to happen anytime soon.
I would think in the lifespan of this device in particular, probably you're okay.
Yeah.
Like, so before we knew how this was going to actually run, and before we had people with hands on, my justification for buying this was, worst case, I can stream games from my desktop Steam install to this, and it's going to be better than the Steam Link, which only supports 802.11n. I think this is a Wi-Fi, at least right now, it only connects to my Unify stuff as Wi-Fi 5, which is AC. It doesn't do AX yet. The Steam Link went from N to AC at some point along the way. So maybe it's a software update. I don't know. That seems weird.
Interesting.
Also, it could just be that Linux doesn't support the new specs as quickly as the other stuff, or the Wi-Fi card in the machine doesn't.
Sure. Also, just to kind of put a cap on what I was just suggesting about support, you could always just put Windows on it, like in some theoretical, unlikely to happen future where the Linux Proton stuff is no longer advancing. Like, you could always just install Windows on this thing and play pretty much everything. And I even I saw them, I think yesterday on Twitter saying like, hey, we've got updated APU drivers out for sound and stuff. Like, make sure you stay up to date on hardware if you're running Windows on this thing. So they are supporting that.
Yeah, the thing, like, for me, having watched this stuff for a long time, like, we reviewed some Steam machines at Tested back in the day. There's a through line from Steam machines to the Steam controller through the index to this that is pretty visible, because like the work that they put into Proton over the last few years is a direct result of the complete lack of software support for Steam machines, because they looked at that failure and clearly were like, okay, we can't expect game developers to support this thing when there's no market for it. So how do we make that work? And they were like, okay, we're going to fork WineX and make it work for games in a controlled and repeatable way across the platform. So like in that regard, like the experience I've had so far is that basically if the Steam Deck says it's going to work, it works like 99% of the time. Like, I've had one game that it listed as semi-supported, that the performance wasn't there. And I uninstalled, but for the most part, like even like Elden Ring and stuff like that works. I'm looking to see.
You're not going to name and shame that one game, are you?
I'm going to. I mean, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's that the game does more than they're able to do with the hardware. I want to make sure that I have the support level correct for it, though, because I don't want to blame them for me.
Suspense is killing me.
It's Hardspace Shipbreaker.
Oh no! Aw, scrappy little indie game that could.
Well, I mean, but it's also and it's listed as unsupported.
Oh,
so
well,
like,
okay, then that's fine.
It's on me, right?
Oh, I thought you meant it was a game that was supposed to be supported that was not.
No. I fired it up to see. I was downloading the games that I've been playing recently to see how they ran, and the problem it has, I think, is probably that it does too much CPU for the APU to keep up with, given all the physics simulation when you're blowing up spaceships and stuff.
Sure.
So, yeah, like it usually just works. I was going to say to close the loop on the comfort stuff, it's too heavy to hold with one hand, which isn't surprising given how kind of long it is.
Yeah.
The extra width of it isn't uncomfortable to hold for long periods of time, because I was worried you were going to have to get to an unnatural angle to sit there with it in your lap or propped up on your elbows or whatever in bed, and that's not been a problem. The on-screen keyboard works really well using the two pads, but I wish that it was smarter, especially in the desktop OS, about popping up the keyboard when you click in the text field. Usually, like, to get it to pop up, you have to hold down the Steam button and press X, which is a little bit awkward. And usually that means that then you lose the ability to use the mouse, the right pad as the mouse, because it gets locked into the keyboard. So you end up having to tap into the text field, bring up the keyboard, then tap into the text field again often, then do your typing and pull your trigger to hit enter, and then close the keyboard, which is fine. Like, I did some pretty long curl strings and stuff like that using that keyboard. Yeah, interesting, right? It wasn't a bad experience, but it wasn't like, definitely would have been better if, like, when you tap into the text field, Linux was like, oh, clearly you want to type something and there's no hardware keyboard attached. Let me pop up the software keyboard like it would on your phone or something like that, for example.
And I guess it goes without saying you were using it in handheld mode at this point.
I don't have a dock. The dock's not available yet.
Okay. Well, you can use any USB-C video out method to get it onto a monitor.
Yes, but I don't have.
But if you don't have one,
I don't have a USB-C dock. And frankly, I don't know that I need. Like I hooked a Bluetooth keyboard up to it for a while.
Yeah, so that's where I was going with asking about the handheld stuff. You wrote here, you're probably going to want a Bluetooth keyboard if you spend much time in the desktop mode. Like the thing I was going to ask there. First of all, does it have a kickstand?
No.
Oh. So it does not stand up without some kind of supplemental bass.
I put a book behind it.
I guess that counts. That's a very low tech solution. The thing I was going to ask though is the screen low resolution enough that you would not want to do a lot of desktop work on there anyway?
I was going to say that is the thing about desktop mode is it exists to do things that you're going to use in the TV mode,
right?
In the game mode, like it has a full application manager. So you can download stuff from repos, you can download Flatpaks and all that stuff. You can install. I installed. It comes with Firefox installed. I installed Edge, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So you can browse, but it's limited in that regard. And the touchscreen is fine for scrolling and selecting things and stuff like that, but it doesn't give you the level of precision that you probably would expect from your phone. In terms of what it's like, it's not smart about you. If you tap 3 pixels away from the X to close the window, it's not smart enough to know that you were trying to close the window. It just taps 3 pixels away indefinitely. And you may not be able to get to the far corners of the touchscreen with the digitizer the way it works, which is why the touchpad mouse support is so important. So yeah, like I can't see myself. So, for example, if I was going to go on like a 2-week trip and I wanted to be able to play the Anacrusis for work and I wanted to be able to do some light streaming, I might grab a capture USB dongle and a laptop and take the Steam Deck and just play games on the Steam Deck for work and whatever. Because it works really well. Like I was shocked at how well it works for most things. The place it breaks down is you're not going to use this as like a desktop computer without an external monitor. Because 1280 by 800 is too low resolution for a modern windowed operating system, I think.
Yeah, and how big is the screen again?
I don't know. It's like 7 inches, 6.5 inches. It's big. It feels bigger. It feels as big as the Switch OLED.
Okay.
There's more bezel though.
Do you have an OLED?
Gina does, yeah.
Oh man.
It's the screen is really, really nice. It still is slow like a Switch.
Sure, of course, yes.
Yeah,
the Switch is past its prime. Let's
say old hardware at this point. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the game support's really good. If it's partially supported, it has this menu that pops up. You can navigate to the menu that gives you the details of their compatibility report, and it will explicitly say. So, for example, Wild Wild West or Weird West, rather,
very different game.
It's a wiki whack game. It's listed as playable, but it has the little yellow information tile, and it says, this game sometimes shows mouse, keyboard, or other non-Steam Deck controller icons. This game requires manual configuration of graphics settings to perform well on Steam Deck. And then there's 2 check marks that are like, all functionality is accessible when using the default controller configuration, and in-game text is illegible on Steam Deck. So like the other flags that it'll give is sometimes it's like you have to do performance stuff. Sometimes it's like you have to bring up the Steam Deck keyboard manually, stuff like that. They give a good, having looked at this on the back end, they give a good report to developers of what you need to do to support. Like if they've run your app, they've run your game through their process, they give you a report of all the stuff that you need to do. That's kind of like a cert report from a more traditional console manufacturer.
Interesting.
But it's like, this is one of those things where it's nice that there's not like a good Steam Deck and a bad, like the difference between the good one and the bad one is just storage.
It's literally the screen coating and a thing you can replace yourself.
Well, so you can't put an SSD in the MMC only one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Let me pull those models back up. I had those in front of me.
Yeah. So I asked friends at Valve when they announced this thing, I was like, hey, is there going to be an empty slot that I can just put an SSD in if I buy the cheap one? And they were like, no, there's no socket on the cheap one.
I see what you're saying. Yes. That's an M2 connector, I assume, right?
So yeah, it's an M2 connector and it's a weird length M2.
Right.
So it's not like the standard PC SSD. You have to get a shorter one.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about this. Okay. So I did not realize I thought the board was the same in all the models. So I think that alone is probably the the main reason I would have to get at least the cheapest one with that socket, because
that's why I did it. Yeah.
Because that's for more than just storage, right? Like that's, we've talked about this recently, like an M2 connector, an NVMe connector is just a pathway to the PCIe lanes. So theoretically you can connect like any PCIe device to that connector.
You're going to put a fiber connection in there?
Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? 10 gigabits to your Steam Deck. Sounds pretty good.
It downloads real fast, Brad.
I may have spoken to someone at Valve at one point back when this thing first started shipping who said like they would not be surprised to see somebody hooking like a real PC GPU up to that connector and trying to make it work.
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. It's not going to be a limited number of lanes, but that's still pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so impractical from a portability standpoint that you would just do it for bragging rights, but it would still be pretty awesome to try to get that to work.
Well, depending on how the USB-C is wired, you could be able to plug it into an external GPU. Anyway, but yeah, so there's a benefit. The benefit here is that all of the devices are the same, so they only have to profile it for one piece of hardware right now, which means if the Steam Deck, if the Steam software says it's going to work on all of them, which is important. So like I played a ton of games. I played a lot of Vampire Survivors. That game is rad for a hand. Like it's got real Lumines vibes for me, and like hey, this is the thing that I like to play on this thing if I don't know what I want to play.
It's the default game on the platform. Yeah, like
pretty much.
We talked about that. I played some Lumines on the Switch on the way out on that trip a month ago. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we were talking about how like Lumines was the game that never left your PSP, right? Like unless there was a reason to have something else in there, Lumines was in there.
Well, and it goes so for me on Lumines, especially, it goes so far as like, if the D-pad's not in the right place, the game doesn't feel right to play.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I need the weird janky PSP 4-button D-pad. I can't anyway. I played some Elden Ring. Like I played a big boss fight where I had to have timing right and all that. And it worked. Like I was surprised. Like the frame rate was a little bit janky, but not much worse than my PC in similar situations. Like frame rate on Elden Ring, not a great thing, but I killed a giant frost dragon. Like, I had to do rolls and dodges and blocks and all that stuff. So the Anacrusis, the game that I work on, runs great. We're listed as unsupported, but I think that's because of some problems that were in Proton earlier this year. And we just I hadn't hit the button to say, hey, will you look at this again yet? So hopefully that'll update soon. Dead Cells felt a little slow. Like I've put 100 hours into Dead Cells, so I've played a fair amount of Dead Cells, and like it didn't feel quite as fluid and smooth as I would hope.
Is that a performance thing or an input latency thing or ...
I would say ... but I think it's input latency on Dead Cells, and it's listed as verified. So one of the things that's interesting is when you play a game that they list as verified, after you get back in the menu, it says, "Hey, Valve's testing indicates that Dead Cells is verified on Steam Deck. Does this match your experience playing the game?" And if you say yes, it just goes on. If you say no, which I'm going to do right now, it says thank you for your feedback and goes on as well. I was curious to see if it had a little survey or something. But Hades had similar issues. Dead Cells was very playable. It just felt different. It wasn't as bad as, say, the Switch version of the game, which definitely feels slow compared to the PC version. Hades was a little like, I felt in Hades like I was missing things because of input latency that I wouldn't have missed if I was using DualSense.
Interesting. I wonder where that latency is in the chain.
I don't know. I mean, this is part of the problem with like running the emulator and all that. The other thing is I think that there's a Vulkan version of Dead Cells that I should probably try. I don't believe that there's a Vulkan version of Hades. In my experience, if the game offers a Vulkan version, you're usually better off using that than the DirectX version that runs by default. For example, Doom running on the Vulkan version was unbelievable. Like 2016 Doom.
Yeah. Like noticeably different from the DX version.
I didn't run the DX version, but I wouldn't have known. Like if I had hooked this up to a TV and had it coming out of a TV, I probably wouldn't have known that it wasn't an Xbox One playing Doom or Xbox Series S rather.
Right. I've done a little poking around in various GitHub repos related to all this stuff. You see a lot about DXVK. Are you familiar with that?
Is that the Vulkan wrapper?
It is. Yeah. It's the translation layer from Direct3D to Vulkan.
Yeah. And the wrappers are usually pretty performant, but they're still like for a game like Hades where 3 frames matters.
Yeah.
So to give more context on Hades specifically, the weapons that didn't require parries were fine. Like the shield, I had a real hard time getting the parries right on the certain aspects of the shield that require parries. I couldn't make work. And that's, again, it's a game that I put like 100 and some hours in. So I have a lot of muscle memory and like my timing is based on standing in front of the PC with the gamepad. And it's entirely possible that if I had played 100 hours with this, I wouldn't even think about it. And I would have adjusted without my, like this could be my brain, not the system is, I guess what I'm saying.
Sure.
Geometry Wars is freaking awesome on this.
Oh,
portable Geometry Wars, Brad.
Man.
Right.
God.
And like,
that's the first thing anybody has said that has truly made me want a Steam Deck. They should just put Geometry Wars 1 out on the Switch. I bet that would run fine.
They should put Geometry Wars 1 out on everything.
Well, yes, I fully agree with you, but man.
And this is the old ass. This is the Xbox. This is the version of Geometry Wars that I bought an Xbox 360 for, just to be clear.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't tried the sequel, which I should load up because I think that's on Steam too.
Did 2 come out on PC?
I believe it did.
I don't remember. It might have. I don't know that it did, actually. I don't think it did.
Really?
I believe the Geometry Wars 2
was only on the Xbox.
Is 360 only.
Weird. Well, so Tunic played great. Celeste is a real timing based jumping puzzle game. Was able to play that. I haven't put as much time into that as I have into Hades and Dead Cells, so it's possible. Like I wanted to have a control to kind of see if it was my brain or the game, and I was able to get good enough at Celeste to get further than I have at any point in the past. And it pulls down all your saves. Like it connects to it deals with all your saves, just like running Steam on multiple devices does, which I my bet is most people probably don't do. But like, as long as you close the game when you're done, it uploads the save. So like I could turn off the Steam Deck in the living room, come in here and open my Vampire Survivors save. And it would be, by the time I walked around the room, it would be synced up on the PC usually.
That's pretty good.
And this might be the perfect platform for like turn-based RPGs like Yakuza Like a Dragon. Holy shit, that game is very good. And I'm sitting and watching TV and occasionally paying attention to this stupid thing.
Oh, that game rules. Although, I mean, it's a good spectator game. Maybe
it is a good spectator game. Yeah.
Maybe think about introducing Ichiban to the family, because I found my cohabitant enjoyed watching that game quite a bit.
I don't know if I want to introduce my daughter to the idea of soap. What is it? Soap rooms?
Soap clubs or whatever.
Soap clubs. Yeah. Yes.
I guess I can.
But why do only women work in this place?
Yes. Fair.
So yeah, the other thing that's happened since we talked to Wes and Norm is that the outside software, as it becomes more available, has gotten pretty wildly advanced. So if you want to do emulation stuff, there's this piece of software called EmuDeck now, which you can get at emudeck.com, that literally you download a flat pack and run it on the machine, and then it runs scripts and downloads all of your emulators from different repos. It sets them all up so that they have like the right aspect ratios and all that. Like they put a nice little SNES frame around your SNES games and stuff like that.
Wow, I'm looking at this now. This looks really well integrated. It looks like it's based on RetroArch, which I don't know if you've kept up with that.
I like situation. Up and down on RetroArch. It turns out, yeah.
RetroArch not especially popular in the emulation scene these days, but if it works, it works. Also, it looks like it's not just RetroArch.
No, they download all sorts of other stuff. There's Dolphin and QEMU and a bunch of other things too.
And say it.
Yuzu.
Yuzu's
on here.
Yuzu is in there too.
I tasted the forbidden fruit, Brad.
That is a fruit, isn't it? Now that you mention it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. I think it's literally the forbidden fruit.
It's a citrus fruit and plant in the family of the Rutaceae.
Can't don't you also make booze? Oh no, that's spelled differently. That the yuzu, that's booze. So you install EmuDeck, and then at the end it's like, hey, do you want to put Steam ROM Manager on here? If you install that from the I can't remember what Arch calls their repos. But if you install that, then it'll go in and say, okay, hey, I see you have EmuDeck on here. I'm going to scan your folders for ROMs, and I'll make shortcuts in Steam for all of the ROMs that you have copied over to this thing. And then you have like art and like my Link to the Past going to hold it up to the screen so you can see, but it like I have art and stuff for my Link to the Past in Steam.
I need to see that. That's like that is one of the things that I miss the most on the Mister, and I realize it's just something that you would. Let me see.
It's stupid.
Oh wow, the video call is completely destroying. It's like keying out half of that art.
It's all keyed out. Yeah.
I get the idea. Like if I had that on the Mister, it's something I would marvel at for 5 minutes and then never think about again. But still, I kind of miss having like nice box art and stuff.
It's nice having like the banners and stuff in Steam when you have the menu pop up.
I had not heard of Steam ROM Manager before. That's not a Steam Deck specific thing, right? Is that something you?
No, you can put that on Windows as well, and it'll
get use out of that anywhere.
Basically, it'll add ROMs that it detects to your non-Steam game section of your Steam UI.
Interesting.
I think it would probably be more useful if you used a lot of big picture mode.
Yeah, fair.
But the upshot is, like, if you had plugged this ROM manager thing into a folder with 5,000 SNES and Genesis games, you're probably going to have a bad time and mess up your Steam UI pretty bad. So I would advise against that. I would just take like the 3 things you want to play and keep them in the right folders all the time. That Steam ROM Manager also runs on the desktop, and it uses a different window kit. So just like Steam mouse support on your gamepad in Windows, if Steam's not running in the right way and doesn't have the right emulation set up for the input, then you end up using the touchscreen to do all your mousing, which is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then the other thing that I don't think we talked about with Wes and Norm at all is that streaming from both a Windows PC and from your consoles, well, xCloud on the Xbox's case, from the PS5 and the PS5's case, works really well.
Hang on, I'm trying to work this out in my head. Are you streaming directly from your boxes, like your PS5 over your LAN?
Yes, I'm streaming from my PC and from my PS5 on the LAN.
Right, because that's all Sony has right now. But in the xCloud case, you're streaming from their data centers through what, a web browser?
Through Edge, yeah, for Linux.
Oh, that's why you installed Edge.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I mean, Edge is fine, but I wouldn't expect you to seek it out unless you had a specific reason.
Well, and also to be clear, the PS Now stuff launched last week, I think, didn't it?
Oh yes, yeah. So the new PlayStation Plus tiers, yes, with their
Operation Confuse the Customer has commenced.
Their enhanced streaming tiers and so forth are out there. Yes.
But yeah, streaming from Steam works really well. Even games that didn't run great on the Steam Deck, like Hard Space, worked fine. Basically, anything with gamepad support will be fine. You can do. It's funny, they try to teach you how to use the gyro flick stick stuff with the Steam Deck when you're doing the initial like configuration and install, which I still have I'm going to have to just take a week and play something awful hard and learn how to do that, because it seems like it would be really powerful. But like they encourage you to keep they have the capacitive touch sensors on top of the sticks and the pad.
On the sticks?
So they encourage you. Oh. Yeah. So they can tell when your thumb's on the sticks, just like they do with the index.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so like the gyro only works when your thumb is on the stick.
That's
by
cool.
default. So it's interesting. The PS5 streaming with Chiaki I've used more than anything else. I'm
sorry, with what?
Chiaki is an open third party. It's like a PlayStation remote play open source app.
The number of apps and managers and compatibility layers and stuff to keep up with for all of this is getting that list is getting very long.
Well, so this you had to do some real terminal wizardry to get the right key to like pair your PlayStation with the app. And then once you did that, you just open it and it's like, hey, which PlayStation do you want to launch?
Oh my God, my mouth is hanging open right now. I have landed on the, first of all, I've landed on the Chiaki repo on Source Hut. Oh
yeah, so everybody loves the Source Hut. Come on down to the Source Hut.
Number of Git interfaces is multiplying rapidly. Anyway, wow, this is okay. A free and open source client for PS4 and PS5 remote play. I have to try this because the Sony client is not great.
It works way better than the Sony one, and it works with non-Sony controllers.
Oh man, I'm getting this as soon as we're done recording.
So with the Steam Deck, it maps everything over. It doesn't turn the gyro on by default, I don't think. But everything else, like the normal pads work, the sticks and the D-pad and the buttons and the triggers all work just like normal. When you touch the touch screen, it works like touching whichever quadrant of the touch screen you touch on whichever game you're playing. So like playing Ratchet and Clank, you touch it, it brings up the map. it works unbelievable. It works so well. I couldn't tell I wasn't plugged in directly to the device. Like I couldn't distinguish that it wasn't local. And it's a incredibly pleasant experience to play on this. The only problem with Chiaki right now is sometimes it's hard to get it to exit properly. Sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 tries you have to basically, like, there's no force exit button in the Steam game playing UI. You have to like you basically have to hold down the Steam button and long press B, and then it'll force quit it. I think I had to restart the Steam software once to get it to all the way close. And then xCloud worked really well too. And Microsoft like has an actual guide to do it on their support site. So it's like, hey, if you want to run xCloud on your Steam Deck, here's what you do. And they basically walk you through the process of downloading Edge, setting up a kiosk install at the right resolution with the right access to get controls from the controller and all of that stuff. And it just works.
Kind of awesome. I really enjoy this latter day cross-platform open Microsoft.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. They even give like art. They even give you the right art to put in the UI, so it all looks right when you're in the game. So yeah, like everything about this has been positive so far, I would say.
I mean, gosh, when did it first start shipping? February
or March.
Less than half a year. They've gotten it. Sounds like a pretty good place. Can we circle back to emulation performance real quick? Like I'm sure 16-bit SNES and so forth totally fine, but like what is the heaviest game you have tried to emulate on this thing?
Are we talking about Yuzu or other stuff?
Look.
So I went through the whole thing.
I'm pretty sure if you own the game legitimately, it's still fine, unless there's like weird BIOS or other kind of questionable copyright stuff that you have to dump to get it to work. I don't know.
So the instructions provided by the Yuzu people are basically tell you how to take your launch generation Switch, hack it, pull your firmware and your keys and all that stuff off.
So at that point, maybe there is something that's not quite kosher. I know like the original precedent was if you own the game legitimately, you can emulate it, right? Back in the day.
I mean, I was doing it for journalistic research purposes here.
I'm just saying with, like weird DMCA stuff and like, sometimes like BIOSes are not freely distributable and stuff like that. Like maybe it's gotten murkier at this point. I don't know.
So my experience was the 16-bit stuff ran really well. I didn't play a ton of 16-bit games because I have the Mister for that. But I did like load up Breath of the Wild and Super Mario World and some stuff like that. And it was indistinguishable from the Mister for all intents and purposes. The
dolphin stuff?
The dolphin stuff was a little more up and down. So the GameCube stuff seemed to run pretty well. My guess is that that's going to be a game by game basis, and also that it will continue to get better as they tweak the dolphin settings for the hardware that's in there. Cause like there's a lot, dolphin emulation is pretty well solved at this point, but also there's an infinite number of options in there. And my guess is that like, for example, Twilight Princess ran pretty well. Super Mario Galaxy, it had some hinkiness with the sound that has always plagued Super Mario Galaxy when I've tried to play it. So, and those are, I mean, just to be clear, this is using my ripped ROMs from my hacked Wii. So it could also be that I did a bad job ripping the ROMs. I didn't go download known good ROMs, which, the Yuzu stuff was incredibly involved getting the keys off of your Switch. The performance on Breath of the Wild was okay, but not like, I don't think I would actually want to play it at the settings that it defaults to. It was probably running about as well as it did on the Switch, like 30 to 40 frames a second.
Fair
would be my guess. Yeah. I am interested. I'm thrilled about that as a way to play old 16-bit games.
For sure.
Yeah. And they looked really nice on the screen. Like that amount of up-resing, basically you're just doubling lines, and it looked really nice.
So no complaints about the quality of the screen. Like I've seen some side-by-side photos out there next to the Switch OLED, and, like kind of backlight bleed or like bad contrast by comparison, not in a vacuum. And I'm sure that if you don't have it next to you to look at, it's probably fine.
So compared to the Switch OLED is like a Mercedes-Benz though. Like that thing is gorgeous.
That's like best in class handheld screen right now, right?
Yeah, this one's incredibly bright for an LED LCD. I haven't. The backlight bleed seems to vary based on the screen. Obviously, as is usually the case. I don't have any stuck pixels. I did check that. I intentionally didn't load up the black screen for backlight bleed because I kind of don't want to see it. And once I know it's there, I'll be able to see it.
Sometimes you're better off not knowing.
I haven't noticed anything in screens with a lot of dark, for what it's worth. But yeah, like I'm optimistic. Like the fact that people, I mean, in my circles, obviously it's a lot of game developers and a lot of game journalists and stuff like that. The people who are going to absolutely buy this, whether it's good or not. My hope is that this is the beginning of a new category, like that this is what they wanted the Steam machine stuff to be.
Yeah, I remember we kind of put that question to Norm, I think, and Wes. I think Norm jumped in on that and basically said, like, yes, this is the Taco Bell fourth meal of your computing environment now, between phone, laptop, PC, and now this. It's
a lovely way to play. Like I don't, after spending 8 hours a day in my office and then another 3 or 4 hours a day streaming or doing podcasts or whatever, like is my normal day these days, I don't really want to come back in here and play more games because it's pretty sweaty and like I just don't want to spend more time in the office. So if there's a way for me to play stuff that I have on the PC or that's best on the PC, like Tunic or Yakuza or something like that, and do that in the living room where I'm kind of hanging out, getting a little bit of time with the fam, I'm totally going to do that. And I'm into it. And it's awesome. Like the openness is really cool. Cause for example, when I needed to get a bunch of shell commands over, I realized today I could just open up the SMB client and connect it to the NAS and like write the script on my PC and then copy it over there and just run it from a bash prompt on the SMB share. And like, that's really cool.
That's pretty awesome.
It's very exciting. The openness feels really exciting. Like it's difficult. I don't want to overstate this, but it is difficult to explain how cool it is to have something that's like a Switch-ish form factor that I can do whatever the hell I want to.
You can open a command prompt on.
Yeah, exactly. That I can install some weird emulators and also the idea that like it's the same as the one that everybody else has, so that the person who writes the script to make theirs awesome just shares that script and it runs on mine too. And like that's a really powerful thing right now. So yeah, I would describe myself as pretty bullish on this whole thing. I think plus like it's a $500 starter PC for games. Like you can't get a Steam PC for $500. Like it's really hard to build a $500 PC that's going to be comparable to this.
That would not have the portability factor, even if you could.
Yeah. Now I want them to bring the Steam Deck front end to the big picture mode on PC Steam and the other places, so that we have the same kind of functionality on the Windows.
That seems like it's coming, right?
I have to imagine it is.
And then I don't know if we really want to get into it. I mean, there's like, now that the AMD Zen 4 chips are almost out, rumors are starting to pop out about new APUs based on those. Like there's part listings are starting to show up for Zen 4 based APUs, which it's probably too soon for a second rev of the Steam Deck just yet, but that seems like a likely candidate.
I was going to say right now, if you order the mid-range Steam Deck, if you put your $5 down, the availability is after Q3 right now, so which is October 2022 or later.
You can just go place an order right now. Like they will at least let you get on a list.
Well, you put $5 down and that puts you on the list.
But it's not like they are even opening windows just to do that. Like that's an all the time thing now.
No, you can do that anytime. You've been able to do that anytime since last July.
You said Q3 if you get it right now?
After Q3.
Oh,
so after October.
How much after is probably an open question.
I mean, I would assume it's not after Q4. They would have changed it to say after Q4.
You're probably right, but things change.
It also, like, this is an anecdote. It could just be that everybody hit the button. Like, we're getting into the time. Like, I tried to order on the first day and the site was down all day. You couldn't actually do it. And then I just gave up and I was like, well, I'll get it when I get it. And then on Friday, 3 days after they opened the pre-orders, I happened to notice and hit the button. I think I'm noticing a lot more people showing up with them in their feeds now. Yeah. So it seems like the posting on the Reddit has reached a kind of critical mass. So it's possible that they're ramping the speed at which they're able to produce it now too, which would be nice.
I thought I was in need of a new power supply this week on the topic of supply chain and availability. And even the power supply I wanted was a ships in maybe 2 to 3 weeks kind of situation.
Just go to Central Computer for power supplies.
Oh, I guess I could do that.
I'm a big fan of Central Computer. So yeah, like I hope, like since they're 5 months out from shipping new orders today, I have to assume that they're not thinking about like that we're not looking at a new version anytime soon.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I hope, and they've often said this. They said this with the Vives, right? Is that they wanted to use their weight to kick loose a new market, right? And I think that they'll, like, given that there's already a lot of Southeast Asian manufacturers building comparable machines with APUs, I think we'll probably see some advancement along that path. Now, the question is whether they're going to be able to ship Steam OS and all that stuff. We'll have to see. But I guess this is the time at which we thank our patrons, Brad.
Yeah. Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. If you would like to find out how to support Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod, which is a 100% listener supported show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, that's patreon.com/techpod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can join our fabulous TechPod Discord, where people talk about things like the Steam Deck and weird hacks. I learned about EmuDeck on the Discord. Somebody pointed me in the right direction on that, because that saved me literally it was like hours and hours and hours of configuring that was gone by downloading this one script. Yeah, it's a lovely community to hang out, and we'd love to see you there. So this is the part of the show where we thank our executive producer tier patrons, and I'm going to go ahead and warn you.
Uh-oh.
There's new name shenanigans happening.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Thank you, as always, to our executive producer tier patrons, including Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Logic Ill. I assume that's their
hang on.
Their like nerdcore hip hop name.
Question is that an existing patron or a new one?
I don't want to out them. We have Octothorpe Bunny Crimes, Just Wedge, Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, The Twinkie Struggle, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
Yes, we do.
And I guess that'll do it for us this week, Brad.
That's right. It's getting hot around here. I don't know about how Pacifica's doing.
My fans just spun up downstairs.
We're getting into it.
We should plug last week's episode of the Tech Pod, which was about Home Assistant, the FOSS Pod rather, which was about Home Assistant with Paulus Schatzen. Had a lovely conversation with him about the future of home automation, like why he got started doing it, how they fund the whole thing, what it's like to run one of the biggest broadest open source projects in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think if you enjoyed this podcast, you will probably especially like that one. And also next week's, which is really exciting.
Next one is a good one. The next one was like one of those where I was like, man, this was an honor just to get to do this.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about how much I use the tool that the next guest talks about and has worked on for a long time now, but it's very good. It
is a foundational piece of internet technology.
Yes, very, very important stuff. So that'll do. That's it. fosspod.content.town. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm glad you're back in San Francisco, Brad, just in time for the heat wave.
Well, hey, there was a worse one approaching when I left, so.
Oh, that's true.
At least it's dry heat out here.
See y'all next week. Bye.